Welcome to Solo Shot First, and today we're going to be having a look at the figure of Taun We, the Kamino cloner from Star Wars Attack of the Clones. Now, it's quite interesting packaging on this. I don't know if you can see the actual sort of card that appears sort of inside the bubble seems to have slipped. But I'm well aware, obviously, that this figure has quite limited articulation. But I suppose what's quite interesting about this, these are obviously slightly different card backs, and quite nice in the design, although obviously not something that I would ever sort of, collect to sort of keep carded or anything. But the whole idea, obviously, of getting this figure was also, if you're looking at doing, I know I talk about dioramas and scenes quite a lot, but obviously if you were looking at doing a scene on sort of Kamino with clones, then you're definitely going to want some of these cloners. So not too much to write home about in terms of the actual sort of front of the card. I suppose what's more interesting is the fact that these figures were probably something that we hadn't seen anything like this really in Star Wars. So quite interesting, although obviously, again, they play quite a small part. Obviously, they do play, a small role. You see them quite a bit, obviously, in Attack of the Clones, and they do play sort of more of a prominent role in the actual Clone Wars itself. So, anyway, not a bad looking front of the card. Obviously, you've got a still from the film there of Taun We. So let's have a look at the back of the card. So actually, probably far more impressive from the back. It actually talks about the Attack of the Clones, being sort of 10 years after the fight to save Naboo from invasion. The galaxy is on the brink of civil war. Under the leadership of a renegade Jedi, thousands of solar systems threaten to secede from the Galactic Republic. A courageous Jedi Knight, his impulsive and headstrong apprentice, and a Queen-turned-senator are drawn into the heart of the conflict and the beginning of the war. So, the beginning of the Clone Wars. You do obviously have the other sort of other two figures here, sort of highlighted on the bottom, that were what I suppose you could class as were essentially part of this wave. Where you've got Luminara and Julie and the Emperor of the Royal Guard. And then obviously you've got Taun We there in the middle. And that part, which looks like she comes with, which will have another look, obviously some sort of cloning device. So just one further look before we get this figure out of the box. As I said, I don't think you're going to be talking too much about articulation, but just more about the look of the character. So anyway, let's get this figure out of the packaging and we'll have a look. Okay, so here we have the figure out of the packaging, and there really is not an awful lot to say about the figure itself. I mean, in terms of the articulation on this figure, is incredibly limited. I mean, literally those arms move up and down. The neck does appear to have, I can bring it in slightly, some sort of bend, but it doesn't really hold any position, so it's probably just meant to be sat there, and obviously there's no ball or anything on the top of the head. But what I would say is the attention to detail on the face sculpt is quite nice for these cloners. Yeah, it's quite nice looking. I mean, as I said, look, getting it to stand is also not ideal, obviously, on this table because of the cloth, but the legs don't really move. And I think if you can see, her feet are very sort of tightly tucked together there. But, quite nice looking. I mean, I suppose, as I said, the only reason to sort of get this figure, really, if is if you're going to be probably looking at doing some sort of diorama and actually having some clones in the background and et cetera, et cetera. The only other sort of accessory that does come with this is this piece here. I'm not sort of really sure what that's probably meant to be. It's probably obviously meant to be just sort of maybe where the clones are developed, possibly, I'd have thought, looking at that. And from the back, nothing, again, really to write home about. Just obviously that sort of, I don't know whether you want to class it as a dress or some sort of garment at the bottom. I'm assuming that this is does take on that sort of a female character, but you never quite know. So, anyway, very limited figure in terms of its articulation. Said literally just one, I suppose, really for you sort of diorama makers. If you want looking at doing a scene from Kamino or having sort of clones with them, then it's an interesting I say it's certainly not an essential pickup by any stretch of the imagination. It was just something, as I said, I wanted to get up to maybe sort of at some stage do a scene or a little diorama with the clones. But anyway, very basic figure, quite simple. At the end of the day, you know, this isn't for everybody, but each to their own on that. Anyway, listen, I hope you have enjoyed this video. If you have, please click the like button and subscribe. There'll be more videos coming shortly. If you've got any questions or comments, please leave them in the comments section below and I'll come back to you as soon as possible. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.